real quick, I know I've been here before. I've talked a little bit about what we do. For anyone who doesn't understand, I just want to bring this all together. At Concerned Veterans for America, our mission is to stand for the freedom and prosperity that we as veterans fought to defend. And so just real briefly, the idea is that as veterans, we fought overseas to defend freedom. And we fought for our, this is why I joined, this is why I enlisted, to fight for my family and to make sure that, as Ronald Reagan said, that our freedoms don't slip away in the next generation. Because it's only but one generation from extinction. And so we're constantly fighting back. And we realize that tyranny isn't just overseas, but there are issues here at home that we can deal with. And so we're not your typical veterans organization in that we're simply just talking about veterans issues. Although we do talk about the Department of Veterans Affairs and those issues there. But what we're talking about is we're talking about other issues on a national level, getting veterans and military families and veteran supporters and getting them engaged in these causes, such as the Department of Veterans Affairs, reforming that so that our veterans have timely and efficient service. Another issue that we talk about is we talk about our rising national debt as a threat to our national security. If that's not a veterans issue, I don't know what is. But the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, for a long time, veterans have only been talking about veterans issues, and obviously those present excluded, because I'm not trying not to preach to the choir here. But unfortunately, there are many veterans that aren't getting engaged on these topics, that they're not getting, many aren't even registered to vote. Veterans are a very underrepresented demographic when it comes to voting. And so if we're not even, exercising one of our most basic rights, that is to vote and to, participate in the future of our country in that way, what else are we doing? So we're getting them engaged, we're getting, and it's not just veterans, but it's, as I said, military families and veteran supporters, getting them engaged. And we talked about it a little bit, but this is what better way? We've got teenagers and homeschoolers and Boy Scout troops and high schoolers of different shades that are participating and for the first time getting involved, for the first time understanding the legislative process. One of the homeschool moms, when we did go to Congressman T-Berry's, said, "Man, I wish I would have been able to experience this process." Literally, these kids are seeing the process of passing legislation from beginning to end. Okay, it's getting drawn up, this is something we endorse, it gets through the House, it gets through the Senate, it convenes, it all is all reconciled and goes through the president. Neither here nor there. But the point is they're seeing the process from beginning to end and actually getting to meet a congressman. I didn't get a chance to meet a congressman until, I was probably in my 20s. But
you weren't missing.
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, it's getting people engaged, whether that's our youth, whether that's our veterans, whether that's veteran supporters. And I don't want to belabor the fact, but I do want to open it up to. We've gone a little bit longer, so I want to open it up to some questions about our 501c3 program, about getting involved personally, more about our organization or our stance on different things. So please, any questions? Anything at all?
Please. You mentioned about eBay. I wanted to call your attention to the event that we have in Ashtabula in August. I know the one in Columbus. You well worth your time to come here and see the battle on Saturday afternoon. It is amazing what they put together out there. Aircraft, battle tanks, and everything. Fantastic.
We just had a meeting last night, and someone brought that to my attention. So we're going to see about getting involved in that. Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that.
It's a big event.
Absolutely, fantastic. Yes, ma'am.
How do we get our churches involved, realizing how important these issues really are? Because in the political correct culture that we're living in, we see many churches that just don't want to touch that subject. And
Yeah.
I think that they should be talking it from the pulpit about not political parties, but issues and how important and veterans and our freedom and what's it cost here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll touch on this and I'll pass this to Nathan because I'm sure he has some things to say. Truthfully, that is the benefit of our organization. We are a 501c3, 501c4. And so some of the same kind of hurdles, if you will, that churches have to go through and they have to watch what they say. It's the same thing that we have to do. And the thing that we've emphasized to people over and over and over again, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, we've got to pressure those who we elected. We've got to pressure them to do the right thing. For too long, the path of least resistance has been the wrong thing. And everyone is pushing, whether it's the media, whether it's special interest groups, that it seems like everyone is against us as conservatives. Everyone is pushing and making the path of least resistance the wrong thing to do in our eyes. And so regardless of political party, regardless of elections, regardless of quote unquote politics, we've got to make it so that we rise up as conservatives, as veterans, as military families, as activists, and put pressure on those who are elected to do the right thing, make the easy thing to do the right thing to do. And that's a nonpartisan issue. When we talk about veterans, and once again, that's a benefit of our organization, we talk about veterans, that's a nonpartisan issue. We're not talking about who's getting elected here, who's getting elected here. We're talking about you're elected, you have the power to do something about it, and instead, Senate leadership is blocking this important VA reform. And we pushed through and and it ended up getting passed. But it's just a perfect example of it's not a partisan issue, but people want to make it a partisan issue. And I think, once again, I'll hand this over to Nathan, but I think that to a certain extent that answers the question is we've got to get involved somehow. We've got to let our voices be heard because the other side isn't letting their voice be heard for all the wrong things that we would agree with.
From my standpoint, I think too often in the church we've really screwed this up, that we think that if we don't talk about it, that if we ignore it, it will go away. And that attitude has got us in the mess that we're in. It has to stop. But I'll give you some practical things that you can do in your local congregation. Things that I've done in my local congregation. We both go to the same church, but we have a really great pastor who's supportive of this, but frankly he doesn't have enough time to do all this stuff, so he's like, well, if you do the legwork on this, it's great. There's a really great organization, it's called Watchmen on the Wall. It's done by Family Research Council, and they provide bulletin inserts. They're little, half 8 and half by 11 pages, and bulletin inserts. And so, what you do is you can print those off, and they do them for major, like Independence Day, that kind of stuff. And it has conservative principles, and it's biblically based, and but it's a bulletin insert, and they don't have to say anything. Just put that in the bulletin insert and hand it out to the congregation.
What's the name of that again?
It is Watchmen on the Wall, and it's by the Family Research Council. Anyways, they provide that, and it's a really great resource. And again, a lot of times we just like, hey, let the pastor deal with that. It's his job. He should be doing his job. It's part of it. But if you say, hey, can I just put this in the bulletin, for Pro-Life Sunday, and for Independence Day, Memorial Day, and they have a whole bunch of other different steps in that that kind of talk about these core principles. And if it's not in your wheelhouse, it's not necessarily something that you want to do, I would say, can I create my own bulletin insert talking about our basic first principles as I see it, get it approved, and try to put that into your bulletin. And that's something small that you can do. But the larger scheme of the thing is we have to understand that if we don't, there's no neutral ground. Either we're winning or we're losing. Either we're living or we're dying. And that's That's the